Just give everyone a second.
I wonder if people can see us right now. They probably can, right? Are we live?
We're live.
Oh, we're live, you guys.
So I'm assuming yes.
We were just having this polite conversation about smashing each other and breaking ribs on segways and like yacht parties where we have where we fling bread at each other at Brighton SEO, and then we're like, oh, we're live. Wait, we got to go live. We have a second. So then we went silent, and then we're live, and then here we are.
And when you go live, you have to ask, wait, are we live? Can people see us?
I do it every time because I'm always surprised.
It's tradition. Stick with it if it works.
We're really just filling time so everyone can roll in here as they you know how it is. You all probably have been to webinars before. So
yeah, I think we can go ahead and get started now. All right, so welcome everyone to today's webinar, What Can Go Wrong with AI Content and How to Win Instead. My name is Riley McLaughlin, and I'm the content manager here at Main Street ROI. And I am joined today by Mike Roberts and Sidra Condron of SpyFu. And before I pass it off to Mike, just some quick housekeeping. So today's webinar is being recorded. So what's going to happen is tomorrow morning you're going to get an email with a link to the presentation, and you'll also get a link to the slides as well. There's also going to be a Q&A section of this webinar. So if you have any questions, please put those in the questions area. And we're going to hold questions to the end, but if you come up with a question, just put it in the chat, and then we'll just go down in order when we get there. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Mike.
right on. Thanks, Riley. Thanks for having us back. So this is a first. I've been to this webinar and done webinars here multiple times, but this time you get to hear from a real expert. Sidra Condron runs the content team here at SpyFu and RivalFlow. Thanks for being here, Sidra.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for including me.
I know,
was
it's
really
awesome.
Excited about this topic.
Yeah. Like actually, the idea originally was I would do this, throw this thing together because I've done some quite a bit with the AI and generating stuff, right? Like with RivalFlow, we're laser focused on improving existing content with AI. RivalFlow will read your content and read your competitor's page and find, what questions they're answering that you're not, and what questions they're answering more thoroughly than you are. And then we generate the content to fill in those gaps, right? To build your authority and ultimately boost your rankings. And it's a very predictable process, but there's a lot of entropy, right? We're dealing with, not only the internet, but also the inputs and outputs from AI. These are both things that you can't really control. And so we run across, when we're doing this improvement process, lots of technical issues, things that we have to fix. And since we launched RivalFlow about a year ago, we've actually, the engineering team and marketing, all of us combined, right? We fixed, or we made about over 700 improvements as of last Monday. It was about 710. And so I'm gonna kind of add a little bit of my insight into how improving content we've run across issues with AI, but Sidra has a completely different and unique and hands-on perspective. First of all, Sidra was RivalFlow customer #1, right? Back in like before RivalFlow was even like a product. It was like a console app that I wrote over a weekend, and like we proof of concept that. But she also runs the content team, and we of course are AI first here, or recently AI first, right? Because, well, we do our own dog fooding. And so she's going to walk you through all the challenges that she's run into and the team's run into in terms of producing new content. And we'll kind of tie it all together with how, because there's lessons that apply on both sides, net new content and improving existing content. And so she's going to mostly do the presentation, and I'm going to try to not interrupt too much. But as you can tell from like the way that I talk, it's going to be a challenge. So
No, I
at
love
this point,
chatting with you. Please.
right on. So, well, I'm just going to try to not interrupt, but here it is for you, Sidra. Let's go.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to talk with you because I know you're really knowledgeable about many of these things. And thank you for making that distinction, because so much of what I'm talking about today is very specific to when you create new content using AI. So a little background. When we launched RivalFlow just over a year ago, like I think we just hit the anniversary a couple of weeks. So just over a year ago, we were not a new startup. Our team also ran SpyFu. We were the same people, and SpyFu is a successful 15-year-old plus company, had a thriving customer base, so we couldn't drop everything and ignore those customers and ignore SpyFu and then start to nurture RivalFlow. But we had to establish RivalFlow's SEO footprint and start building customer-focused content, email nurture campaigns, onboarding, help desk, and also a blog for SEO presence and domain authority. So that was a lot for a team that already was doing something else with an entirely separate tool. So we decided to turn to AI for help. Because there was so much new content to create, our goal was to get help with scale. And so we all agreed that there would definitely be human supervision at every step. Admittedly, I was hesitant at first, maybe a little bit skeptical. What I had seen of AI was a little bit clumsy at the time for new content generation, and it definitely didn't capture the nuance of how I wanted to be talking with customers. And I know that many of you on the call with us today, business owners, in-house teams, you probably have similar concerns. And maybe you want to be cautious at first about using AI for your written content, but you don't want to get left behind by your competitors who are they're going full out. So that's what I'm hoping that we can help address today. I want to arm you with enough insight into what can go wrong so that you can fix those mishaps before they cause you any problems. Make sense?
Yeah,
so,
and I'm sorry. We also have like this backlog of we've seen so many people do so many things, and so this is part of those insights.
For sure. So back to a year ago where we jumped in, we learned a lot. So that gave me deep experience with the different tools and AI outputs for content. I started to see what AI generated content looked like in this context, and it definitely had its issues. So before I break those down into specific problems, let's address a huge question. And I know, Mike, you and I have talked about this a lot. Is Google okay with AI written content? So the basic answer is yes. Well, it's yes with conditions. So there are a few rules that are very smart to follow if you're trying to create authentic content to connect with an audience and also rank on Google. So the first one comes directly from Google, specifically Danny Sullivan, in educating the public about, I think this was in response to a question someone had, like, well, you say that we need to have the right answer for the search. How do you, at Google, determine if the intent was met? And they answered in a way that kind of stuck with us because it's such a great answer. It comes down to a basic rule of thumb. If someone's asking you a question and you're answering it, that is people first content. Mike, anything you want to elaborate on here?
I mean, that's the fundamental, the core focus of RivalFlow, right? We're just, answering the questions that customers have. But no, I mean, I think that this is by the way, Danny Sullivan is the Google search liaison.
Yes, thank you for the clarification. Yeah, so people first content is really what it comes down to. It's not necessarily who makes it, whether you are one person writing it from hand on your yellow lined notepad or you are using AI to help you. What matters is the end result. And so that leads us to the next guideline that speaking of people first content, we know from Google directly that the way content is produced is not the issue at all. So whether you are having a machine help you, that's fine. However, ultimately, you have to write for humans. So what does that mean? Google rewards content that is helpful. It answers basically what the searcher is hoping to find and hopefully gives them even more information that they had not thought to ask. Rewards content that is written for people. So it takes the reader into consideration and makes the topic natural and engaging. And I'm going to talk in depth about what that looks like, because that's where it can be really tough to define. You can say, well, sure, I write for people. Why wouldn't I? I really want to dive into that. And then next, it has a point of view. This is an opinion, an experience, or an angle that sets you apart from any other page that's about the same thing. And so while AI can take a stab at being helpful, it takes people to elevate the content.
So I think that, like, can I jump in real quick there on that last slide? So you're talking about writing for people, and I would like to say that, you know, like, okay, I get it. You want to write for people as an SEO, sort of an SEO skeptic, right? Like, but we want to write for the algorithm. But the thing is that the algorithm is becoming more LLM based, right? It's becoming, you know, so basically Google's LLM is reading your page and grading your content. And it's kind of difficult, right? Just like it's relatively difficult to judge the difference between what like Claude or OpenAI will produce. It's also kind of consuming the content in that same way and grading it like a human would. So in a sense, we're writing it for, if you're writing it for Google, really just write for a person, write for people. And when doing that, now you're really writing for you're writing, when you're writing for people, you're writing for the algorithm as well now. But and even like, let's say just 2-3 years from now, you're definitely, those are definitely like things past that are completely in alignment.
That's a great distinction. I think when I was digging into this, I found there was something in Google's documentation where it was saying historically they thought about, well, if we find something that was so obviously written by AI where it does not seem to be putting people first, then we're going to discount it. And they thought, no, that's going to cause us a little too much trouble. It's going to be tough to chase. So instead, let's flip that around and we will reward the content that is people forward. And like you said, that is the key goal, and then the algorithm will follow.
And I think also, if you think about the amount of content that, I mean, we're talking about like written prose right now, right? But if you think of the amount of content that's on the internet that's well indexed, that's actually essentially machine generated or comes from a database or a data set or a combination of data plus sort of Mad Libs, if you will. You know, like sports reporting is effectively, has for a long time, for many years, at least 10 or 15 years, been effectively largely Mad Libbed, right? And this stuff ranks quite well. This isn't new, all things considered. It's new to us, and it's really uncannily good. But it isn't new. Machine generated content is as old as the internet, almost as old as the internet.
Yeah, great point. And I think it goes into, you just have to add your own touch so that it's different from other people's take on their machine created output. Because we all can't be going to the same tools and say, create me a blog post, and then the same things are coming out that just don't offer anything new. Because why then would you share it?
Yeah.
And that takes me to a story I want to share. When I was in elementary school, my mom would make cupcakes for my birthday. And like, I can still picture that foil lined cardboard box that in the 1980s, that was brilliant food transportation and presentation. She would just kind of line it just so it was all bright and sparkly. The night before, I would help her while she was mixing the batter, and I would drop the cupcake liners into the pan. and get really excited about my cupcakes that were coming. And since my birthday was early February, she made this cherry flavored cupcake so that they were pink, and then it had white frosting on top, and just like in the picture here. And then she would top it with those sparkly red crystals. Just perfect. Like most moms, she had a ton on her plate. So she actually grabbed a Betty Crocker cake mix to help her speed it up. But what I remember, even to this day, it's the final product, like the cupcakes for every person in the class, the oohs from the kids as she walked in, and the red sprinkles on the white frosting that to this day, still, when I see that combination, it makes me think of no other month except February. So to me, she made those cupcakes from scratch. It does not matter to me that there was a cake mix involved. She added her own touches along the way that took it from being a generic cake mix to a final product that was made so specifically for my birthday. And that's how Google sees AI assisted content. If you do it right, the cake mix won't matter. And it's those additions and changes that make the difference. So your content should go through that same personal care and attentiveness. That is what we call humanization. Because without it, that's where Google starts to penalize and downplay pages. And then side note, for some reason, my mouth does not want to say this word properly or the same way every time. I could be saying humanization, humanization, bear with me.
That's very human of you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that's a good observation. If you just plug in some prompts and paste the output, no matter what tool you're using, whether it's like ChatGPT or something that's more created like Claude, dedicated to creating content. If you just plug in prompts and then paste the output, you are risking thin content, that lacks authority and any point of view. It might appear well written, and that's well done by tools like Claude, because I'm a fan, but I'm just warning you that if that's all you do, your content is going to start to lack these things. And additionally, it's probably peppered with the specific challenges that we're going to jump into right now. So the first one is cliches and repetitive language. AI loves to put things out that remind me of, you know, when you were in 8th grade, you're writing an essay and you want it to sound really impressive and use these flowery words. So AI loves to fall back on common phrases and buzzwords. And you will end up with content that if you leave it like that, it can just sound robotic and flat. So for example, we somehow ended up with a generated text that over time, like over multiple drafts, it finds everything to be crucial. I see this constantly, and I look at a draft. Yeah, look at all of these. Yeah. Content idea, it's crucial. So I pulled these from past drafts. Ultimately, we rewrote all of them. If your readers are relying on, if they see you relying on the same words and phrases again and again, and they want to hear something fresh from you, this is going to stand out and start to eat at your credibility. It makes the text feel dull, and then the reader isn't that confident in what they're reading.
It's weird how we have evolved a bit, isn't it? Like we like at first it was like I feel like the dead giveaway for me was like in GPT 3.5, it was like firstly, secondly, thirdly, nobody uses fifthly. It's not a thing. You're that's not a thing. And now it's becoming a bit more nuanced, right? Like, you know, I see where you're going there, Claude. But as an active user, stop apologizing.
As my dad says, pump the brakes. Pump the brakes. This is another one.
Rewind 1 second, because you're talking about the problems that you're solving, but like the thing that I want AI to do for me, and I think that ultimately this is something that you want as well, is is you want to take that core idea that you have, and I mean, like, look at the slides that you've made, right? It probably took, like, I'm pretty sure it took you like 10, 12 hours to make the slides or something, right?
A long time. Yeah.
It would be great to just be like, here's my idea, here's my presentation, here's the outline, make good slides for me, right? You want to package your core concept, the thing that comes from you, and have the AI help you polish your idea and put it out into the world, right? Not necessarily make me an article about this thing. You're taking your core thoughts first. You probably have some slides in here about that, but I feel like we're solving the problem first, but I know that you start with your own thoughts no matter what, right? Especially when you're doing net new content. And that's what we're doing with like the RivalFlows. We know that you already have put your thoughts into it. So we're only improving things. And that's, I think, what the purpose of AI is, right?
Well, and let's kind of repeat that again, that you could, when you are working with an AI content generation tool, you might be giving it a keyword, and then it comes back and says, here's an outline I came up with. Do you approve? And then you can make your changes, or you can say yes, and then go forward. And it can say, great, here's my draft. If that is all that you use, you are going to see more problems pop up, and you are going to see content that looks really nice. I will give it to them. It looks fantastic. It reads nicely. But when you really dig into it, it's not going to stand up against the other pages on the SERP. And this is very specific to new content that you're generating from scratch, that you're generating from a keyword. So when you have your own thoughts, that's in this process usually going to come later, where you start to pepper them in. I know there are some tools or some formats where you might say, here's everything that I want to share, help me put that together.
That's
in
interesting.
that case,
so you generate like an outline first, and then
in some tools and that was part of our process, so I can share that now.
No, go ahead.
What our team was doing, we had someone who was dedicated fully to SEO, complete SEO specialist. And he would study the keywords that he knew that we wanted to target. And then for each keyword, he had his specific set of prompts. I wish I could get into it more, but I don't have access to that right now off the top of my head. But he would create a set of prompts to then go into ChatGPT and help him come up with an outline for what he wanted to build an article on.
Gotcha.
So he first used ChatGPT. Then he took the outline there and then went to Cuppa and gave Cuppa the outline and says, give me a blog post. It was, he had many more prompts and more sophistication, but I'm just gonna keep this simple. And then he would separately go to Claude and say, give me a blog post. Take those two and then turn them over to me with very little context and say, how do you feel about what this is telling you? And here's the keyword that we are trying to rank for. And so I would get a sense of what they were trying to say and pull pieces and say, I like where this direction is going. I like this subtopic. I hadn't considered that, which, by the way, is one of my favorite uses of AI, for it to bring you ideas in the research stage that you hadn't really considered and might not have gotten there on your own. So your final piece would have ended up less than what's out there. So I love that for AI. And so then I like that I was separate from that building process, and he would just turn it over to me and say, here are your ingredients, here's your inspiration, make something out of it. So when we were at first just flying through and trying to get something out the door, we had a number of people looking at drafts, and we were reading them just to make sure they didn't suck. And then let's get something out. And then after a while, we started to see, this isn't the greatest content. This isn't that good. And so we tore down that process and decided to treat the AI generation as more inspiration. And I was rewriting a lot more. I forget if I was answering a question, I'm sorry, or just adding to it. But yes, I think it was the point that you often do not start with your own point of view or ideas in some of these generation tools. Sometimes you can start with
people have an opinion on a portion of it, right? And but not necessarily starting out with it as your core. I mean, I feel like there's a possible way to like start from that, but when you're, I guess if you're trying to rank on something, you're not going to necessarily be like, I don't know what my opinion is on this particular thing.
Yeah, and you probably could throw that into a prompt, but I think you've talked about the idea that if a prompt gets too long, some of it will get ignored.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I know for our process, we found it better that I would come in with the opinion at the end because I wanted to get the inspiration up front for what it would give me and then rewrite, put things in different order and come in with a different point of view or an additional point of view that maybe wasn't there before.
Cool. Sorry to interrupt them.
I'm glad you did. No, not interrupting at all. You're just adding to. But I do want to share one other thing when it came to this kind of language because it cracks me up. But we would see this flowery language. It makes AI wants to create this magical place. We would see like digital marketing landscape, the realm of search marketing, the world of SEO. It loads those in the intros and your conclusions. Just keep your eyes open for those. Oh, okay, so I put check your prompts because I went digging and I'm glad I touched on what our process was because it will make a little more sense here. I found that some of these issues were rooted in the outlines. So like I said, I was not the person who created the outline, but I went back and I was looking at a draft. Part of our process is to leave a lot of documentation of how we got where we were, so we can always go back and trace our steps and see where we might have gone wrong. And so I was able to see that one of the instructions in the outline referred to, quote, digital marketing landscape. So that was buried into every new piece. So here I was blaming the tool we were using, and part of that was our fault. So it could be the personality that your AI generator has set for you, but make a note of the things that you see popping up in your content that might sound flat and generic, and I'll share it with your team. So make it something of like a no-fly list. I take the word crucial, and anytime I see that, I have a list of other words that I want to use in its place so that I'm not repeating the same. Let's say I want to replace crucial with critical. Well, now I'm doing the same thing if I'm replacing critical every single time. So create a list for your editing team, or even if it's you and one other person, that you want to say, these are the things that we look for, and we want to make sure that we're editing them out of the piece.
I've actually seen this quite a bit when people try to like make a style guide or a brand tone and voice guide, and it's like, okay, here is like here's like 200 or 300 words about like the tone and voice that you should, you know, aspire to, and it's like, dude, it's not gonna follow like those rules. Like it's gonna pick and choose some of them randomly to like sometimes do, but it's probably going to be the ones that annoy you the most. I know you have some slides about this. I've got a lot of examples. True. Matching voice is so hard, but also not that hard.
No, I know you have a good story about this, and I definitely have a slide that I want you to be able to talk about. This one it's big. It's probably what AI is most notorious for: hallucinations. For example, there are stories about Google's Bard chatbot falsely claiming that the Webb telescope had captured photos of a planet outside of our solar system for the very first time. There's nothing to base this on, but because apparently of early flaws, we'd hear stories of AI hallucinations. A lot of that has been resolved, but in content though, new content creation, they still sneak up, and we've definitely seen it. AI can make up facts, which not only makes your page inaccurate, but having inaccuracies on your page, that harms your credibility. So keep in mind, authority is a clear SEO factor, but that's for Google. Your audience isn't always going to be as forgiving when they sniff out some BS. So it's probably one of the most pressing issues with AI and content. As an incorrect item gets published, that's now one more source for a reader to cite or for future AI models even to reference. So here are some examples of what I mean by hallucinations in your content. It creates quotes and attributes them to people who never went on record saying it. You will get content that includes customer case studies that never happened. That's definitely happened to me. It gets prices wrong. We wrote something about SpyFu, and just because we were the SpyFu team, it was something that was very easy to catch. I think it was a comparison of tools, and it showed our price as something that was not even anything we had ever offered in a promotion. It was so completely off. Like I think it ended in a 3, and all of our prices had ended in a 9. So that one stood out. It makes up features about a product. So it could suggest services that you don't offer or capabilities that your product just doesn't do. And then when it tries to be human by offering examples, because that's a differentiator, humans can tell stories and offer examples, AI is not that good at it. When it tries, it can fall into the hallucination trap. So for example, the other day, I had an AI generated example that included a search operator for outdated. Just a quick aside, if you're not familiar with search operators, it's a descriptor that you can add to a Google search, like let's say a minus sign. Mike knows this is my pet peeve. I'm a fan of the Arizona Cardinals, NFL football team. I also I'm not interested at all in the St. Louis Cardinals. No offense to them, it's just not my thing. And so when I want to search Cardinals, I might use a minus for baseball or minus St. Louis. Do I do that often? No, I usually just get gripey and mad that Google is giving me St. Louis. Anyway, but that's an operator. So the AI generator had told me that outdated was an operator. And that threw me off because I thought, oh, that's new. I didn't know that was possible. So I searched again, and as you can see on the screen, this is kind of funny. It doubled down on telling me that there was an operator. So first, the overview is correct. It says no, outdated is not a Google search operator. But then you see right under it, like, why don't you go ahead and use the operator outdated? And notice there's no link there because there's nothing that it's going to link to that backs that up. So that was just like a funny example to me as I was trying to fact check AI that it doubled down on the error.
Yeah, so the hallucination thing is quite a it's a different issue with RivalFlow, right? Like we are able to solve the hallucination issue, and like you think of like chatbots or whatever that operate as like your support team. The way that they avoid hallucination is by using a source of truth, a fact, a document of fact that it won't stray from, right? And then so you kind of like do this secondary prompt at the end that says, does this align with what's in this document, right? And so with RivalFlow, what we use is your competitor's document, right? So we use your competitor's page as a source of truth. But the interesting element there is that when we use the competitor's page as a source of truth, if you're like a dentist, let's say in St. Louis, and your competitor is in Kansas City, then sometimes Kansas City is a fact on that page, and so we wind up, putting that in the page. So we wind up having to identify those potential things, which is like probably probably accounts for about 100 or so of the fixes or the improvements that we made to RivalFlow, because well, I mean, it doesn't hallucinate, but it'll inject facts that come from your competitor, and we need to make sure that those things are in alignment, or we need to show those to ensure that they do show up. It's funny though, like you mentioned the prompts thing, like because Claude's real creative. Like, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with like with temperature. Temperature is this concept of how creative the LLM is, and you can dial up temperature and dial it down. And so temperature is creativity, and so the more creative, and so the flip side to creativity is hallucination. So you hear like the CEO of Google saying, well, actually, the thing about it is that hallucinations are part of its strength. And you're like, wait, what are you saying? Well, actually, it kind of is, because it has to, like, you want it to generate new insights, or to sort of think creatively, if you will. But yeah, like one of my favorite prompts is essentially like, I just submitted this article to the New York Times, and they rejected it for not making not meeting their guidelines. Could you pretend to be a New York Times editor and make it so that it'll pass their guidelines? And so you can take any piece of like relatively, shitty content and send it up, and it'll basically write this glorious New York Times piece. But it'll be like, Sarah Chen, the founder of like the web archive or whatever, and you're like, and you look that up, and it's like, first of all, that lady does not exist, and she is not there, and like, and so you're like, it's quoting people that it completely makes up, that makes sense in context, and you read it and you're like, this is great. But you definitely have to fact check that kind of thing. I mean, it'll make a nice piece of content for you though, so if you can just change who it's quoting, then it might work out fine.
That's a good tip. I never thought about
it's a good one. Yeah, it works well.
That's a really good one. Some other ways that AI can go wrong in your new generation. So formatting and style. This is a pretty big deal for new content, where AI content generators often put out light paragraphs at a couple of sentences each. So unless you go back, like if you're in control of the prompts at that point, you give it specific instructions, there's not going to be a lot of depth. This one that I found turned out to be an example of light paragraphs, but also a funky formatting issue. So I'm covering two things with one example. This was from an old original draft that we completely rewrote. So for some context, good SEO structure calls for a nested system of H2 topics supported by H3 subtopics, H4 additions if necessary. And that's something that you control in your content management system, right? In your blog editor, you can highlight something and say, make that an H2, make that an H3. They tier down and they organize ideas on the bigger topic, just like an outline. AI has been struggling when it tries to recognize and respect the structure, but then also note it in the output. So you can see here in the example, it just labeled the H3 topics right in the title. It's like, I'm trying, I know these are important, I'm really trying to get it right, guys.
Mm-hmm. I'm deeply familiar with this issue with RivalFlow, right? Because we're actually editing people's content. I know that you've seen this, but obviously we want to make it so that you can just paste the content that we generate directly into your article. And if we change your H tags, I mean, what we're generating is actually Markdown, but you can take the Markdown and paste it directly into like a WordPress editor or whatever, and it'll like the headlines or the subheads that we put in actually get translated to either H1, H2, H3, H4, or whatever. I don't know if we maybe do like something like longer than H4, but if we like replace an H2 with an H3, that can have some pretty significant problems. So we have to match everything and make sure that we're doing it exactly right in the content. And so yeah, I'm deeply, that's like, definitely a bug or an issue that I've seen and fixed as we've improved the sort of matching of for RivalFlow. So
For sure. I've used it in different platforms, Ghost and Webflow, and it works beautifully. There might be restrictions. I think what you're describing, I think RivalFlow gives a lot, like it might go down to H4, but sometimes you're restricted in your CMS by what it accepts. If I'm remembering right, I think Ghost will just let you use 2 and 3. And then after that, you're on your own.
We read the page and then we match it right into whatever it is. I just don't know how many people wind up using H6s these days.
Right. Yeah, but I stumbled upon that in RivalFlow. It was such a happy surprise that it worked out, because it was one of those like, well, here I go, got to do some editing, and then I drop it in and went, oh, wow, that worked out perfectly, better than I could.
Little problems, but big ones, but ones that we have to say, it's a focus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Glad you've noticed it.
So more in formatting, this is another AI, what I call an AI tell, because when you see something that AI generation tools put out again and again, and like I said, I have seen 2 versions of different tools giving me a draft for the same thing over multiple keywords. So I have seen 100+ drafts. This is a common thing. It's going to put a phrase in bold and then restate it without saying much more that's new. So it treats it like a bullet point, right, to give you an idea. It kind of turns into filler that does little for your reader. It makes the page feel longer. It looks like you have a nicely formatted, long, full page, but ultimately your content is thin. If you're familiar with this fabulous meme of Kronk about Cusco's poison, that's kind of the idea. It's just restating it. But here's an actual example. It's from an article about maintaining your roof, the importance of maintaining a roof. And it might say, it protects from the elements, wind, rain, and snow protection. Great, that gave me very little. You just re-said the first thing. So all it's doing is trying to give you more word count. So watch for that. Okay, Mike, this one, I am excited for your story about how AI struggles to get your voice right, because I know many tools, pretty much all of them that we were playing with and researching in terms of AI new content generation tools, they say, we will mimic your voice. So do you want to talk about this a bit?
That is a thing that everybody says, and I think that probably the best practice or whatever, or like, just sort of what you normally get, it's like, we're gonna just give us what you think your brand voice should be, or they'll be like, we're gonna like read your homepage or something and then come up with your brand voice, and and we'll come up with a style guide for your brand. And as it turns out, when like we have lots of different voices in our content, because we have lots of different people sometimes that write that content, and we don't all have the same voice. And sometimes you're writing an article that is in like second person, we, and sometimes you're talking about yourself, and sometimes maybe you're like you're like the perspective that you're talking from, and maybe even the level of professionalism or whatever is changing from article to article, from page to page. Sometimes the page is designed to sell, sometimes it's designed to inform, sometimes you want to be like kind of boring, and sometimes you want to be pretty engaging, and it's not one size fits all. And if you try that one size fits all thing, it sure as heck doesn't work. So I thought that was going to be a great idea at first. Now what we do is we just match whatever the page is, right? So we have like that sort of advantage that we have, that we're working with existing content. But one time I was just playing around with AI. Maybe it was for our old homepage or something related to it, because we had like the dolphins. It was a sort of surfer theme or whatever. And I was like, okay, pretend you're like, okay, you're a surfing journalist, write this article or whatever, right? And so it's like, oh good, I'm a surfing journalist. And so like the intro is like, what up, hang loose, let's dip in some sweet pearls, and I'm like, oh, like I mean, it's just basically all broed out. And I'm like, okay, so the real way So like hot tip, right? Don't do it that way. Basically just say you are you're a middle-aged man that rides a skateboard and lives in Oceanside, California and surfs occasionally.
Very
Write this
specific.
article, right? So you give it like a real person, and it'll infer quite a bit about like, you know, how you might speak, and like you'll actually make references to landmarks as opposed to just being like like you sound like a Michelangelo from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you know? Because that's what it's gonna go with if you do that. So it'll or yeah. Anyway, that's my hot take. Not even a hot take. It's like just do it that way. Don't.
No, that was great experience because I remember that you experimented through a lot of trial and error for.
Oh yeah. It'll literally use like words like tubular. And you're like, what are you doing?
It's trying. It's trying
I mean,
so hard.
I'll be honest. Like surfers do use words that you're like, really? They actually do that? Yep. That's totally. You know, like I use stoked all the time. Like it's a pretty, I'm stoked to like talk to you today. Like it's pretty normal. And you might be like, bro, you just use stoked. You know, but that's more of a normal thing than tubular.
I have not heard tubular since I was in junior high, but
Oh, there's one you should do. I have a ninth grader and a sixth grader. And if you try to get it to talk like if you try to get like ChatGPT to talk like a middle schooler, it's terrible. It's hilarious.
okay, I'm doing that as soon as we're done here. That sounds fun.
Just do it. Try it. Yeah, use the voice mode and be like, can you talk? You just do something with like skibbity or whatever in it, and let's see what happens. And it'll just completely ruin. Like it's not good.
I feel like it's going to do an age check on me and say, "Are you sure? Are you sure that's the right choice for you?"
He has no idea. It's not even close, man. It's not even close.
Now, everything we've talked about so far, those are issues that are immediately noticeable on the page. The examples I've given have actually been from drafts, but because of our humanization practice, we catch these before they get published. However, there are some AI generation mishaps that can snowball into bigger issues, so I want to talk about those. They're important too. Some AI writing tools focus way too much on keyword stuffing rather than providing valuable information. So they'll get overly enthusiastic. If you will allow me to assign an emotion to a machine, they will get enthusiastic about covering a topic with so much density that it loses sight of the depth of the content. It's just going to be proving to you that it says, hey, I know the keyword that you told me to use. See, I use it here and here and here. So definitely watch out for that. Before I jump into the next mishap, I want to mention a really good practice with AI. So if you're not already doing it, take advantage of getting your ideas on video. Just start talking. Loom is fantastic for this if you want to incorporate a web page into what you're describing. Like say you're trying to show someone on a web page, use Loom. It's excellent. And Zoom is good too. Now, the thing is, you don't have to be polished. You can just freestyle your ideas and get them out there. The big win, what's the best part of this is these videos generate a pretty true transcript of what you said. And so it captures all of your ideas for you, and then you can download that transcript and feed it into an AI tool to generate a new piece of content. So all you did was you're just talking, and I know I'm preaching to the choir with you, Mike, because you're really good about this. You practically taught this to me, that you are a Loom enthusiast. But I think it's sort of an unsung use of AI that's so helpful because it can help you generate multiple pieces of content. So it might be like a blog post, the start of a white paper, or like an infographic spec or a promotional email.
Yeah, one thing that I would add is that like you know, when you're having a conversation, a deep conversation with ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, you want to give it context, lots of context. It's not like, hey, let me ask you this brief question. that brief question is like, tell me what you know about Google GA4, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's then you're like, that first thing, it's just going to tell you everything it knows about GA4. Then you ask it a question because it's building off of its context. So you're by giving it something long form, right? Rather than just being like, let's talk about keyword research or something, right? You just like start talking about everything that you know and learned about that, and you give it that and be like, okay, let's have a conversation, right? So you give it that nice long context, and it'll be so much more insightful and seemingly like way more intelligent than if you just give it like a high level topic to start from.
Absolutely. And it's such a great way to stretch your resources, especially for like smaller businesses or in-house teams. So, and I also like that you don't have to be polished. I know I can get caught up in having to have my message right before I get it out there. I will try to polish things first before I share anything. So it definitely gets you past that. However, there's the reason I brought it up, there's one mishap. There's one thing that you really have to be careful about here. So I want to say, I support this idea. Please use it, and when you do, watch for this issue. It can miss the point. So this is a common mistake. It has the potential to affect all those other pieces of content that I mentioned. It's fantastic at keeping true to your transcript, but once you feed that transcript into another AI tool, then you're at the mercy of its interpretation. So when tools edit and condense your text, it could potentially lock into the wrong idea and steer the entire point of your article just slightly off what you really wanted to get at. So say, for example, you're a contractor and you're specializing in patio covers like pergolas and awnings. You're interviewing a customer on video with a glowing testimonial about how the glaring sun was way too much for them, and now they're able to enjoy their backyard a little bit more because of your amazing pergola. AI could pick up on, in the transcript, that bit about the glaring sun and list it as one of the downsides of your product. So I say this because AI generation tools often produce content with pros and cons. It's kind of part of their style in offering you the draft. Hey, I thought I would give you this post that is very thorough because I'm offering pros and cons on both sides. So when it hears very little about the cons from your, of course, glowing testimonial, it's going to fill in the gaps. So now you have a longer AI summary that completely misses the point of what you were trying to put out. I've seen that happen a few times. It's enough to at least bring it up to say, you might have to run it again. You might have to go back and say, no, I really want you to focus on how happy they were in their backyard with the pergola in place and ignore the glaring sun, or keep it limited to one sentence. The final problem here, this one's more of a roll-up. So unchecked AI issues drag down your overall content profile. What I mean is, having no human point of view, you end up with boring and unoriginal content. So AI can produce generic template-like content that just doesn't do much on its own. It kind of fails to engage. You might get away with that once, but when you load up your website or your blog with these, then you have content that looks like a new coloring book. It's just outlines and no personality. AI can lack the examples to show your reader that you really want them to understand and follow along with what you're saying. To me, that's so important in a piece of content. I'll be reading something and going, I'm not sure I get it until that example comes in, where I feel like the author says, I get that you might not follow this. Here's what I mean. So that's incredibly important. But it comes down to, frankly, why put out anything into the world without that point of view? Because why would someone then read your page? If you don't humanize the piece, you end up losing your audience and losing Google. So as I mentioned, I was skeptical at first of using AI for our content creation. There's a lot of thought and originality that goes into content writing, and machines lack the ability to tell these stories that connect with people. But when you're challenged to do more than what you have the time or the people for, it's really tough to pass that up. I admit, AI is time-saving, it's scalable, it's cost-effective, and it absolutely helps you to overcome writer's block. So there are so many good things going for it. I really hope that you're coming out of this understanding that it's a positive. And clearly, with RivalFlow, we saw an amazing opportunity to use AI to improve your content. So if you are using it to get your content started from the very beginning, there are ways for you to make it amazing. So we wanted to make sure and arm you. I'm rooting for this to be a great help for all of us. If you're using AI in your content writing, just make sure that humanization is a non-negotiable part of your workflow. And there are some specific steps I want to make sure that you leave here remembering. So must-do step number 1, above all, fact check. Have an edit partner. You can use a second set of eyes to see past the prompts you've been tweaking. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, my partner, our SEO specialist, Dan, he's the one who would create the outline and run the first drafts and then turn them over to me so that I was not, I guess, bogged down with the context of what he was seeing and rerunning and regenerating. I could start fresh. So it helps, if you have it, to have an editing partner. They also might have a little more energy to check these details because, let's face it, when you're working on one piece of content for a long time, you can get that hypnosis where you stop, you just zero in on one idea and you think you've covered it well and you miss a number of things. So some errors can slip past that person. So that's really helpful to have a fact-checking partner. Next is to add a human voice. Definitely not a mimicked one, the tubular surfer. But when I say add a human voice, I mean like a true point of view. Talk to people like they are reading as you write. And you want to make absolutely sure that they understand your point. Add specific stories or examples that make sense, like person to person. This is the tougher part. The best practice is completely rewrite what AI has offered. I know that's not ideal if you are using it to speed things up, but it is the best practice just to make sure that everything's coming out the way that you intend it to. So your stab that you take, it's probably going to be more personal and meaningful anyway, not necessarily because you're a human, but because you know your business and you know how to talk to your customers. Make sure your entire article is organized and in the right order. So this order should tell your story. It should be structured to support your broad ideas with narrow ones. And here's where we were talking about like the headers, H2, H3, etc. Longer articles can make this really tough to manage. I get that. You're scrolling through, all right, here's a topic, and then you scroll down and then that topic goes off your page. So I have a tip for you. I have a Chrome extension that I like to use. It keeps track of any page's header. It is, actually, it's SEO Meta. There it is, SEO Meta in one click. It's specific to Chrome. This is what it looks like where I pulled up this random article. I don't own the article. I don't have any access to it from an editing point of view. So you don't have to. This works on any page and it goes and finds your H2 and H3 structure. It's really helpful since it condenses everything that you can follow along and see what your outline looks like. Use AI to assist, not to replace. That's a really good rule of thumb. Remember the cake mix story. People should be firmly in the driver's seat here. So I had a colleague say that she treats AI like a junior intern. Let them, AI, let them take a stab at some ideas in the piece. So it might surprise you with covering ground that maybe you hadn't considered. For me, that's one of my favorite parts of using AI for content generation. But ultimately, the authority comes from your more experienced outlook. So also for those of you who remain a little bit squeamish about relying too heavily on AI, you can still gain some ground by using AI to help you with writing outlines for you to work off of, and then you would fully craft the rest of the content by hand. And then of course, we walk the walk. So as we mentioned, at RivalFlow, we've heavily evolved over the past year. If you've been seeing our social media recently or getting our emails in your inbox, you've seen that we've made, I think, Mike, you said more than 700. I thought it was 6, more than 700 customer-focused improvements to our product. And I'm not saying this just to self-promote. I mentioned earlier that I've been writing content for both RivalFlow and SpyFu, and that includes actually using RivalFlow to do it. I know it's kind of meta and feeding, but stick with me here. Mike mentioned at the beginning, RivalFlow improves existing published content with AI, finding the gaps on your page where a competitor covered the topic better and ultimately outranked you. Then it gives you new text to paste into your existing article to make it more thorough and helpful so that you can rise up the ranks on the SERP. So all that to say, while the SEO and content team, while we use tools like Claude, Cuppa, ChatGPT to guide us through some new content, that's where we learn through experience where things could go wrong. We were able to pass that knowledge to the rest of the RivalFlow team, because remember, we are now in the business of helping people with their content. So we were able to say, here's what we're seeing going wrong in AI, and pass it along. They rolled those, like the answers to those challenges, they turned those into improvements and rolled those into the tools specifically to address many of the issues that I just mentioned.
Yeah, so like if you have that, is this the area? Oh, actually, no, you're kind of talking about it, but like one of the things that we're working on, like the very next, push for us in RivalFlow is humanization, right? So we produce the content that matches your page, but how do we make that even more, like, what if we're matching your page, but what if we can make it even kind of, better, more friendly, right? More friendly than it currently is. And so some of the tricks that we're using or that we'll be publishing will be like, infusing quotes, like kind of like taking some content that what you're saying and just formatting it as if it's a quote from a person that you define, right? Like not somebody that we make up. You're gonna have to tell us who you want to quote, and then we'll quote that person. But also creating an analogy that goes through the entire article, right? So maybe you want to use a golfing analogy for whatever reason when you're talking to people about their about I don't know, the pergola or whatever, right? Or the content may not be that you're talking about the pergola stuff. Maybe what we want to do is make it actually about the location where the business is, right? So we can actually reference local shops, local businesses, local things. So this is something that AI can actually do, and we can do with RivalFlow, infusing some content, some analogies, some things that look like, let's reformat this so that it's like an advice, or various different kinds of advices, right? There's a whole bunch of different kinds of analogies and advices that you could give. Some are kind of like, I have this unique perspective, or I have this, I have a story to tell you, right? So this is ways, by the way, that broadly you could certainly use. Just be like, hey, take this piece of content and add a quote from Mike Roberts, founder and CEO of SpyFu, right? Totally, you guys can do that all day long. You're all allowed, everyone here, to quote me for anything that you want. I will back you up mostly, more or less. Don't say anything terrible, but don't make me say anything terrible. But if you want to, go ahead, use me as your hypothetical person. But anyway, no. That's an interesting default, wouldn't it? Oh, so that says Mike Roberts, founder and CEO.
I'm going to make that my new mic drop for every argument Where do you get that back? Mike Roberts, founder and CEO of SpyFu and RivalFlow.
Absolutely.
Every time.
Just drop me a link, guys, and it'll be totally fine.
But I like what you said, that it gives you the option to just like set who the person is. I'm not asking you to remember, but that was in my interview. When I was interviewing for SpyFu, I had to write a press release, a mini press release, and I just invented a quote for you. And we hadn't talked about it, but that's actually really common practice that you learn in journalism. No, not journalism school, sorry, in PR, that when you are writing on behalf of a company, you will often speak for your higher ups, and you will craft a quote that they will of course sign off on.
Yeah.
So that will be part of the process here. But I like that you're saying we can assign who that person is, that maybe it is Mike Roberts, maybe it's someone else's version of Mike Roberts, but that's incredibly common to have a better, more polished quote that they would say, yes, that is not something I wrote, but that is something I would say. I stand behind that. I approve this message. So I like that that's something that's coming. I'm pretty excited to see that.
Yeah, hot tip. If you want to, like, what you do in ChatGPT is you take a block of text, right, whatever, and just be like, add a quote to this. Add a quote to this, like a confidence-inspiring quote, right? Because maybe you're talking about your product or service. Add a confidence-inspiring quote from Riley McLaughlin, founder of Pergolas R Us, and it'll just take this part where it's talking about like whatever you're saying, and it'll be like, and our pergolas are so amazing that you can hit them with a meteorite and they'll stand up to that, and it'll quote him, and it'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
Said it. It's not necessarily a fact. He just was using a little bit of hyperbole. Or you can choose Mike Roberts, founder and CEO of SpyFu and RivalFlow.
There you go. That's a good evolve.
You can hit Mike Roberts says you can hit these pergolas with a meteorite from outer space. It'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, because now it's on Mike Roberts.
Yeah, totally.
Pergolas are us. We're not saying that.
You guys are, everyone here, the ones that are left, you all know. All right. Sorry, Sidra, I interrupted again.
No. I think you already did a good job of covering how we address the first two of these issues in RivalFlow, addressing hallucinations and the formatting. This last one, I was so excited to see this because I did not know it was coming, and I usually do, so it was a nice surprise. When I say on-topic examples, I had mentioned earlier, AI has a tough time originating examples to help explain something, or originating examples that elaborate on something you have. So I was working on an article update the other day, and it was on Google Advanced Image Search. So it's all about searching for different types of images. And RivalFlow used AI to suggest that I should add some specific search examples like luxury real estate. I had already, in my article that we were improving, my existing text had already introduced real estate as my fictional example. So seeing something so close in a new example was almost too perfect. It made me sit back and go, oh, wait, this is eerie. It's too perfect. So did it just lift it? Did I lift it from my competitor when I wrote this? So I opened the competitor article to make sure I hadn't taken their real estate topic. They were talking about scenic landscape and cats and dogs. Nothing even close to luxury real estate. So RivalFlow had written an example using my existing text to build off of. I don't know if maybe I'm overly geeking out of how big of an advancement that is, but that was incredible. I sat there with my jaw hanging for a while, and then I had to message the team of, oh my God, this is incredible. Well done, bravo. Because it's rare.
Funny how that works, right? So for a long time, you are like, oh, is AI going to be good enough? Is AI going to be good enough? It's kind of like I have a Tesla and I have full self-driving, and I don't trust it, but I hopped into a Waymo, and then I sat in the back seat, and I'm like, I in the back seat in the middle, and I'm like an infant riding for the first time in a car, watching this thing go down the street, right? You know, and it navigated some things that I thought it was in the middle of the night. We kind of like drove through the ghetto of Phoenix because I was coming from the airport, which, if you know Phoenix, and it, you know, kind of navigated around some signs that were blown over, and I was like, dang, this thing's doing a good job. And then, you know, like a week later, I was like, dialed it up on my phone and put my, you know, drove in it with my son, you know, so I was like, all right. I mean, when you know it, you know it. When you see it, you see it. And if it works, suddenly you're like, okay, sweet, I'll focus on other things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice when you have a new level of confidence, right? Because it's like with AI, it's just so rare to see it come up with original examples without careful guidance. So yeah, that was incredibly impressive. I think we're at the point though where we might want to open up some Q&A and ask, what can we answer for you?
We do have some questions.
We do have some questions. So first question is from Jordan, who asked, do you guys have a list of no-fly words you replace that you can share, like crucial?
Yeah, so that's going to be after you and your team have seen the drafts that come out based on your prompts and your content, you are going to catch things that are individual to your business. Crucial might be one of them. I don't know. I just know that's what happened with our content. So for example, if we're writing about search marketing, it's using the phrases in the world of SEO, in the search marketing landscape, that if you're the pergola company, it is not necessarily going to use that, but it could have the same repetition that you're only going to see in the pergola industry. What would it say? In home improvement, in the world of home improvement. So it's something that you'll have to watch for. Go and look at maybe 5 drafts, 3 to 5 drafts, and see specifically in your intros and your conclusions where it's going to be using a lot of that repetitive language, because the repetition is what tells you. It's not the word itself. There's nothing wrong with the word crucial at all. It's the fact that it is repeating it in such an unnecessary way and really doing nothing for the article. So that's why I turned it into my no-fly word, just because of the system that we had set up. It loves the word crucial and it overly loves it, but it might never show up in your content. So you have to experiment a little bit.
So from a prompt perspective, I think it's actually relatively difficult to say, here's a list of words that you should avoid. I don't think that it'll actually respect that as much as we think we would want it to. What you can do is sort of develop a bit of a pattern. I've done a lot of prompt engineering, right? And if you say this to it as almost the last instruction that you give it, avoid things like, avoid overly, well, you don't really need to tell it what you're trying to eliminate. You say avoid words like crucial and, you know, intrepid or whatever, and it'll be like, okay, I get what you're saying. It'll probably do it. That's kind of the best advice. Like, I think you don't have a list, right? Or do you have a list?
I don't, now that it's just me, I just know, like you said, you know it when you see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to state again, there's nothing wrong with the word crucial in your content. It's just that our systems, our generators had repeated it so much, the repetition was the problem. So my list that I mentioned, it's all these words that I want to rotate instead of crucial, because I don't want just one word. I don't want to tell AI, by the way, instead of using crucial, I want you to always replace it with critical, because now critical is my problem. So I keep a list for myself, just because that's part of my nerdy writer style. That I used to have a bulletin board. Here's how to spell certain words. Here's word choice. Here are words that you might want to use to describe the product that are exciting, because you're writing so much that it's easy to fall into patterns and you have to pull yourself out of it. So it was my little coaching attempt to myself. So yes, I have a list of words, but I'm not telling AI what they are. I don't want it.
Was that the image, the first image of you on the title slide? Was that your Jeopardy image?
Yes, it was.
I didn't want to bring it up then, but like, yep, Sidra was on Jeopardy, and she's definitely got the facts and the nerdcore thing going.
I'm nerdy, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my Jeopardy picture was like one of the better pictures I had taken in the last few years, and I really needed to update all the others that we had used on the blog. My blog picture for years was just something, I think it was a selfie I grabbed in my office and said, fine, that'll do. Same with LinkedIn, quick selfie, fine, that'll do. And Amanda comes along and adds such nice polish to all of our visual presentations that my pictures were no longer going to fly. Yours looks really sharp. And so like, Amanda, I need help. And so she edited this photo for me.
Oh, looks fantastic. Yeah.
And I even had to throw in, how many times in your life when you're a normal plain person like me do you get professional makeup? So yeah, Jeopardy photo.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Riley.
All right. Next question is from Ron, and this looks to be about RivalFlow. So when RivalFlow highlights text, is that a result of Mike's explanation about content from a dentist in another state?
Yeah, absolutely. So we identify things. We identify brands, people, locations, obviously phone numbers and emails. Those are like super easy. But identifying brands well is relatively difficult. So we sort of do this thing called internally we call it nerd tagging, and you could also refer to that, and you'd be technically correct. We tag all the things that could potentially trip you up, and you obviously can turn off those highlights if you're comfortable with everything. When you export it, meaning you copy and paste, when you paste like a writing project into Google Docs, it retains that highlighting so that you can send it to your client and have them approve it. And you can obviously turn off the highlighting once you're in Google Docs as well. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
All right. And then looks like one last question. This is from Mimi. How often should you update or change a prompt? Do you recommend developing multiple prompts with different voices to make blogs more varied yet on topic?
Ooh, I like that. I hadn't considered how often to do it as a rule, but I know that we often went back and changed them as we started to see what they were giving us. It's just like the trial and error as you have your prompts and then you get back your content. Like, ooh, it kind of ignored what I told it about previewing the topic with bullets before it dives into the more thorough paragraphs. So I'm going to update the prompt. So that's how our team addressed it. We didn't really have a schedule of updating it because it seemed that once we got our flow going, it was working really well. And I didn't want to mess with the inspiration, but I wanted to mess with the instructions. And by that, I mean, I didn't want to change what we told it in terms of the voice and the style and how thorough to be, but there were times we would try to tweak it, and there's nothing wrong with doing that again and again and again if you need to. So my personal take is do it as needed. Mike, I don't know if you had a different experience.
Well, with RivalFlow, obviously we match the content and that we're looking at. So whatever page it is, if it's a humorous piece, we're going to try to like match that. If it's we're going to match the voice, tone, style of whatever the existing article is. I do think that it's very likely that we'll be able to not just match, but also improve content going forward for people. Generally, you may have some relatively generic content that you want to add some flavor to. Did we have a code for people? I feel like we did.
Yes. Sort of.
Gotcha.
So I think I forgot to ask you what you wanted to offer. I think we talked about an upgrade bonus, but I didn't say what it was. But here's a bit of irony. So we use a platform to chat so customers can reach our support team directly. They're actual humans, like Danielle and Amanda are their actual people, and Jeff. They're insightful, problem-solving people. But the platform has an AI screener that sometimes like you have to get past, and it's a little gamified. So Danielle came up with a suggestion. She said, I can use a passcode. If people just type in, like if they come to chat and our little chat bot pops up and its name is Finn, and they write webinar, it will bypass the AI chatbot and go straight to a human. So that's key for everyone today, because I think Mike's coming up with a promo of what we're offering everyone for having attended today as a thank you.
You get a free upgrade from starter to pro or pro to elite, which is you know, it's a boost in your plan level.
On the RivalFlow plan.
Yeah, RivalFlow. Yeah, so you get so like it's like $50 or $100 off depending on which level you go.
And since we never want AI to handle accounts, only humans can assign a promo or change anything in your subscription. So that's why, just to reiterate, you're going to go to rivalflow.com. You're going to pull up the chat, which is in the lower right corner, like a little chat icon. And you want to reach a human. And your way to do that, if you get the chat bot, is type the word webinar and then kindly ask for your upgrade. They'll be happy to help you out. Riley, thanks for having us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. So with that, I think we can close. And it looks like there's a few last questions, but we'll just we'll follow up via email and make sure that everybody's questions get answered. Last reminder, today's presentation was recorded. So what's going to happen is tomorrow morning you'll get an email with a link to the recording and a link to the slides as well. And Sidra and Mike, thank you so much for today's presentation. I feel like it was really insightful. I certainly learned a few things about how I'm going to change my prompt engineering. So really, thank you.
Yeah, and so Jordan and looks like Mimi there, if you you hit me up on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to answer those questions there. If you want the direct response, I can do that pretty quickly for you. I'm not sure how this platform is going to work when we close it down, if I'll have access to this. If not, then just hit me up on LinkedIn.
Sounds good. All right, well, thanks everyone.
Great being here.